manager as well as facilitating the session today. We're grateful for you guys giving us your time. I know how precious it is, and hopefully we're not zooming you out or kickstarting your day with too many Zoom calls. It's been a sign of the times. Today is really all about having a great conversation and really supporting you to be more effective in your corporate partnerships. That's what we're trying to achieve. So rather than really focusing on our presenters, Lisa and Victor, we really want to focus this and make this a conversation so that you can basically get the value you need from the session. So feel free to jump in and with any questions at any time. Put it in the chat box room there, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. We don't want to necessarily just keep questions at the end, although it'd be great to have a question time. But if there's something you'd like to throw in, especially when somebody says something specific relevant to your organization, please put your hand up and chuck in the question in the chat box, and we're happy to address it as we go along. So this morning is really about obviously improving your corporate partnerships. Today we've got Lisa, who's the CEO of Good2Give. Just a bit about Lisa. She's been driven by a desire to help society and is committed to connecting corporate interests with charitable communities. Following her appointment as CEO of Good2Give, Lisa's led the organization through digital transformation, creating today's market-leading technology-based solution for corporate giving, and has facilitated over $250 million in charitable giving. Her commitment to creating what is now the widest range of giving solutions in the market and has been supported by strategic partnerships with companies like GoFundraise and Communiteer, as well as a merger with ShareGift Australia. So very qualified to help us and talk to us about corporate partnerships. Thanks for giving us your time, Lisa, this morning.
Great to be here.
Awesome, good to have you. And also we've got Victor. Victor is a bit of a inspiring dude. Great to be really honored to be working with him because he's, I can see him working every day and working his head off with Communiteer and giving all this he's got. He's been in the not-for-profit sector for more than 15 years. Also has a background in corporate and consulting as well. So welcome, Victor, to the conversation.
Thank you. Great to be here and great to see everyone as well.
Excellent. So today is really all about you guys, not about us. We want to, like I said earlier, really help you with some of the challenges you're facing in the space around engaging the corporate partners. But really what we want to look at it is the merger of Communiteer or the integration out of Communiteer and partnership of Communiteer and Good2Give and what that means for your organization, but also more bigger conversations on how to engage your partnerships more effectively. We really want to, in this time of high disruption, help the not-for-profit sector step up, improve their corporate partnerships, really look at leveraging the engagement they have and take it to another level, because the disruption in the current year has really had a dramatic impact on the not-for-profit sector. So any way which we can support you guys, improve your relationships with the corporate sector is really what we're trying to do with this session today. So let's get started. Both of you guys, and I think we kick off with Lisa, I guess, what has been the impact of COVID on the not-for-profit fundraising and volunteering? So, and what has this really done to the sector? And love to hear your perspective on this, Lisa.
Thanks, Manish. Look, we've seen really varied responses, and whilst there's been some CSR budgets that have certainly been cut, we've seen other companies actually increase their spend in the sector. So, definitely there are some of the corporates, as we know, who have been really impacted by the current economic climate. Interestingly, one of our clients, Qantas, obviously they've been through a bit of a tough time and continue to be. They have put on hold their corporate giving or their corporate grants program, but interesting enough, they've kept their workplace giving program open, and about half the people who were giving pre-COVID are continuing to give. So, that's really encouraging. And, we're also seeing other companies, an investment firm that we work with, Findex, they've actually done a lot to encourage their staff to give via workplace giving, and they've now actually got about 50% of their team actually making regular donations. So, that's something whereby the companies have looked internally and said, look, corporate giving is part of our DNA, and we really want to make sure that we're supporting charities through this really tough time. Other companies such as Bupa and News Corp, they've actually increased their corporate grants budgets, not by a lot, but certainly their commitment to making sure that there's a bit more money going to a broader range of charities has been really important to them through COVID. So we're encouraged in that workplace giving donations are not dropping off a cliff. They're really holding up, and so those 20,000 people that are giving regularly are continuing to give. So, you know, we know that, I'm sure you guys know much better than I, that there are some, you know, there are some income channels like fundraising, which has been really struggling and has really fallen off a cliff thanks to COVID-19. Although recently I actually heard of a charity that had done an online fundraising event that raised more money than what they have done in previous years with their face-to-face events. So, you know, maybe we're learning to, you know, to give in different ways, which is really, really encouraging. So, the last trend I guess we've also started seeing is that during this time, most of the corporates, if they've got existing corporate or charity partnerships, they're actually looking to those organisations and saying, how can we actually help those charities that we've got partnerships with? So they're not so focused on working with new charities, but having said that, recently another client who's quite a big shopping centre actually came to us, and they're wanting to revamp their charity partnerships for 2021. So I would say on the whole that most of the corporates are sticking with the charity partnerships that they've currently got, but a few are exploring new opportunities for 2021. So yeah, so there's certainly you know, there's a lot going on. I don't know, Victor, how are you finding things from the volunteering side?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And look, I echo everything that you said so far. You know, we've also heard about not-for-profits who have, you know, tried out online fundraising for the first time. And although sometimes the amount that raised might be smaller, the cost involved in the preparation for virtual events is actually smaller as well. So less overhead, less you know, gain, but you know, the margin's actually pretty much the same. So that's actually been a welcoming sign to see. And also one of our corporate partners, Johnson & Johnson, they've done exactly what you said, Lisa, about, you know, not going out there to find new community partners, but instead the first response to COVID was, okay, let's get in contact with all of the existing community partners, and they've got 16 of them. And then straight away going, well, how can we help? How can we make sure that, you know, you keep your doors open, keep yourself sustainable, and helping the clients that you need to do? And a lot of it comes back to kind of skill-based volunteering, or even going out there and, you know, especially for a case like Johnson & Johnson, where they've been able to share a lot of pandemic COVID-19 response techniques, given what they do. So that's been a great help to the community partners as a whole. So that's kind of on the known factors or known clients that we've got. But I guess systemically looking at the sector, we've seen, I guess, corporates kind of self-selecting between whether it is something that they need to suspend, you know, because of, you know, the economic downturn, or they've actually what we call double down on what they actually want to do for the community sector. So we've seen high demand from corporate volunteers more than ever, especially during that first 4 to 6 months of COVID, where there were a lot of people who were just getting the hang of working from home, and they might be working on things most of the time, but they have spare an hour here or there. Or they just want to break from, you know, doing Zoom calls and having continuous meetings. So we've actually seen an increase in demand in corporate volunteering as a whole. Furthermore, we've actually seen, I guess, almost a waiting line of corporates who've actually been going, well, we've been considering volunteering for a while, but right now we don't want to go into the face-to-face side, but, you know, what can we do on virtual and skill-based? Maybe there are other things that we haven't considered that we're more than happy to give it a go. Compared to what it used to be like before COVID, where everything has to be kind of structured, in-person events and briefed. We've seen a lot more flexibility around corporates trying out new ways of volunteering themselves. So that's, again, a great sign to see.
Interesting. Great. Thanks for that, Victor. That was really insightful. It's good to see if on the fundraising side, things haven't really slacked up. So that's awesome, especially with so many massive disruption happening in the corporate sector. So good to hear that, Lisa. That's awesome news. Yeah, and I can imagine the disruption there from a volunteering perspective. So totally understand that. So in terms of, I guess, the bigger picture, you know, how is the whole thing related between the partnership between Good2Give and Community? Are we talking bringing together volunteer, workplace giving, and fundraising all together? What's the rationale behind it, and how are they interconnected? So Lisa, do you want to kickstart?
Sure. Well, if I want to go back about 7 years, and this is when we first started to build the workplace giving platform. So, and we set out to build the best platform in the country, which I'm pretty pleased that we've done that. But I always knew that there was some specialty areas that I wanted to bring in the experts, and volunteering was part of that. It's actually taken me quite a long time to find the volunteer platform that I thought was, really forward-thinking in its approach. And when I met Victor, we just really connected. I really liked communities, depth of knowledge and understanding around volunteering. The fact that you'd spent quite a few years, getting to know the sector and the volunteer industry bodies. So we sat around, we set about to work out how we could actually work together. So essentially, what we've come up with is, if employees go into the workplace giving platform and they do want to volunteer, then they can essentially do it through our platform, but by going into communities' purpose-built volunteering platform. So, for all of you involved in your charities, you know that volunteering is a complex area, and I, for one, knew that we weren't experts in that area, so I wanted to partner with the best in breed. What's critical to remember is that if your charity is registered on the workplace giving, on our workplace giving platform, you also need to be registered on Community's platform and vice versa. So that's definitely something that we would encourage you to do, and we can provide some information after this event as to how you can do that really easily. So I'm really excited because we've already had a number of corporates that have jumped on board, and we're also delivering this really importantly at no extra cost to companies, to donors, or to charities. So that's something that Victor and I have been really aligned on since the get-go. So I'm really excited about that. Victor, I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, we're very fortunate to be in this position to actually partner with Good2Give. We know you guys are the market leader for workplace giving, and look, many research and also personal experience shown that the motivation for donors and volunteers are actually very similar. The entry point might be different, and that's largely aligned with maybe the demographic or the situation at the time. So maybe someone's asked you on the street to start donating for a particular charity, and that's how you got started, and then evolve into regular giving, or your corporate has actually asked you to go, hey, we're actually supporting these community partners. Would you like to lend a hand? And that's kind of how the journey starts. But we see no difference between a donor's journey and a volunteer's journey, as long as it's course-based and it's actually got that hook to your heart that we always talk about internally. So for us, it's more actually finding a comparable and a platform with similar approach and very values aligned driven organization like Good2Give to kind of partner with and offer a very, I guess, convenient, easy solution, especially to the not-for-profits themselves, to make sure that they can actually get involved on both platforms and make that journey seamless for the volunteers/donors that are coming from time to time. So I think for us, it's trying to make the journey more holistic as a giver. Internally we call them change makers because they can kind of choose different ways that they want to give. But for us, it's really about meeting the needs and offering the choices to the individuals, the staff members of corporate, so that when they do feel like they don't have enough time and have competing priorities at work, but they want to support by donation, then they can do so. Or other times when the hip pocket might be a bit tight, but they actually have time to spare to actually volunteer their skills and expertise, then they can do that as well. So it's intertwined. There's no really difference between the impact that we want to see. I think it actually really reinforces each other.
Victor, that's really gold. Have you seen, do you feel that there's actually an impact on increasing funds raised if the people are volunteering more? Is that pretty consistent there from what you've seen in the past? People who volunteer tend to give funds as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So research has shown that there's a 53% crossover between people who are actually volunteers and donors. Again, the starting point might be different, but eventually, if they are aligned to the cause of the charities that they support, it's all about a question of, hey, have you actually asked your donors whether they would like to contribute their skills, their time, and other things besides money. And then for volunteers, it's, well, maybe you've been volunteering for a while, or especially if it's a once a year engagement, have you considered actually helping out with a fundraising drive, or actually, sharing the news with your friends and family so that we can actually raise more funds collectively? So there's definitely a lot of overlap between the motivations and the potential outcome of donors and volunteers. And that's really what this partnership is trying to draw on through our integrated solution.
Yeah.
We also did some research a few years ago now, and again, I'm sure all of the not-for-profits in the room know this, but for a lot of the workplace giving donors, they were typically involved in about 5 different ways to engage with charity. So they absolutely did volunteer. They were likely to fundraise. Many of them were advocates for social justice, and they also supported friends who were, putting on charity events or, getting involved in fund runs. So, and when we actually did the research, we compared it to the general public, and we found that workplace givers were 20% more likely to support charities through a range of financial and also non-financial avenues. So again, I completely agree that volunteering and giving are just completely intertwined.
Yeah. Awesome.
Manish, thought of something to add. It's hot off the press. We've seen kind of recent trends in some of our corporate partners, and also some local councils as well, where especially those corporates or local councils that have a grant program or foundations, we've seen them now actually intertwining, especially skill-based volunteering to stretch the dollar, how far the dollar actually goes. One of our recent pitch to a local council here in New South Wales, which I won't name for now until it's settled, but it's about trying to improve and increase the chance of success of execution after the grants actually been given to the receiving charity. So they actually see skill-based volunteering being a real resource to actually make sure that the dollar, or 10, 20K, whatever it may be, actually meet the impact that was actually pitched at the beginning of the submission. So again, it's still early days, but that was something that we haven't really heard of 2-3 years ago, whereas now it's almost being mandated as, in the 2 or 3 organizations that we know of, to kind of pair off skill-based volunteering and grant and donations together. So that's pretty good sign to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great insight there. Thanks, guys, for sharing that. So now, I guess, moving from, we've got to talk about the partnership and the integration of giving time and skills. Money and skills and time. What does that mean from a not-for-profits business strategy? How do you think, what will be the impact on the not-for-profits, and how can it actually benefit them, and what do they need to do differently or not?
I can start on it, and then Lisa, if you want to jump in, that would be cool. So I guess at a very practical level, at the end of the day, when we work with not-for-profits to engage with corporate partners, it comes back to the relationship building essence. So for me, at a very practical level, the more touch points you have with the corporates, the stronger the relationship, and the more likely you're going to deepen your engagement with their staff. One of the most frequent thing that CSR managers and community engagement managers that we speak to in corporates ask about is, hey, how's the experience for my staff? How are they feeling? Have you got some feedback from them, etc.? And I think the more touch points you have between the staff members and the charity that they're trying to support, the better, the deeper the relationship is going to be built. The second thing is about flexibility. So, and this is very unique to, corporate volunteering. We also do kind of volunteering outside corporate, but especially in a corporate sense, there's a huge barrier of time and availability. So, there's always a lookout for accessibility and flexibility on how your staff members or corporate volunteers can actually contribute. And I think both donation and volunteering offer different kind of pros and cons in terms of flexibility of, when they can give and how they can give. And I think the idea of choice really helps with creating engagement and also increasing participation rate. And I guess finally, from a not-for-profits point of view, we do specialize in skill-based volunteering because we see the long-term impact of what skill volunteering can actually, provide the not-for-profits. So we always call it, teaching us how to fish as a not-for-profit organization. The volunteers can't be there 24/7, but if they can impart their expertise and knowledge to help us get past the first initial hump and doing it once or twice, then maybe we know how to exactly execute it long term. So I think these things, these opportunities themselves, not only are they more touch points for the corporate volunteers, they also get them to really use their own skills and something that they believe in to do good in other ways besides, turning up to a barbecue once a year to do event-based volunteering. The deeper engagement is the thing that really lasts the journey.
I would also add, in terms of when you're actually approaching corporates, to think really strategically about what your pitch is into the corporate. So, don't necessarily cast the net too wide. Maybe pick 4 or 5 organisations that you might already have some sort of touch point with, but then really look in and understand, their business, their priorities, what sort of community engagement activities they're already doing. We've also got some resources on our website, which again we'll share with you later on, which basically gives you some ideas in terms of how to approach the corporates. We've got some great research that talks about the importance of actually having CSR programs around employee retention. So these will all be metrics that companies are looking at, that you can really come in and demonstrate how you can add value and support companies with those metrics. So, and I think the other thing is that I'd say is, just be really, really clear on what you can offer, and don't, I guess, re-engineer your organisation to suit the corporate. If you're needing to do that, they're not the right corporate partner for you. And I've seen, too many charities that have kind of bent over backwards and turned themselves in knots. And ultimately, that's not a partnership that's going to deliver a two-way benefit for the organisation. So that would be my suggestion. But again, look, we've got lots of resources on our website that might be helpful in terms of you building your business case to go into specific corporates.
Yeah, awesome. Great feedback. Did we already cover in terms of areas like fundraising and volunteer engagement? Do you see a big change in terms of, from that perspective as well, if in terms of bringing the two together, in fundraising as well as skills giving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we've seen around from the corporate perspective is, and Victor said that the benefit of tapping into the corporates is you can get some incredibly talented people to help you at a more strategic level with your business. Yeah. And it's all well and good to go and paint a fence, but I think if you can tap into skilled volunteering, it's more important, and we're definitely seeing that this is where the corporates want to go. So they're moving away from that painting the fence, and more thinking about how can they really add value into the charities. And it can take a little bit more extra time and effort for the charities to think about those strategic needs, but ultimately you're going to have a much better outcome, and people are going to feel that they've had a much greater impact. So I think, definitely that's the trend, is going towards that skilled volunteering. We also recently completed a pilot with Westpac around giving circles, and some of you may be familiar with the concept of giving circles. Essentially, when a group of people come together to raise money for a specific cause. And we piloted what we were calling giving circles at work within Westpac. And what was really interesting is that people started, they got involved to give, but as they learnt more about what the particular cause area is, and then when they ultimately worked together to choose a charity to donate their funds to, what we found is that people involved in those giving circles have gone on to get far more involved with those particular charities and their volunteering, which is, just a fantastic outcome. So again, it just reinforces that, that giving and volunteering go hand in hand.
Yeah, I've seen that as well in my experience speaking to the corporates in the last year or so. Very much a lot of volunteers out there want to be, hands-on in actually delivering something of value to the not-for-profit, and really using to deliver an outcome. So from that perspective, I think there's definitely a wider pool we can engage now with skilled volunteering as well. That's awesome. So moving on to the next piece around corporate relationship building as well. And if you want to go a bit deeper into that, you know, for not-for-profits that are quite new on the journey or beginning the journey around corporate engagement, what do you guys suggest are some of the ways to begin engaging corporates more effectively?
I think we've, yeah, I suppose we've touched on some of that, and it's really, you know, from our perspective, we'd recommend, you know, being really strategic in your approach to the corporates, and you know, really being clear in terms of what benefits you think you can actually, you know, bring to the corporate, and a lot of that will be around the employee engagement, which is critically important for all businesses today.
Yeah, I can build on that again, echoing what Lisa said. For us, it's there's 3 ways that I would recommend not-for-profits who are quite new to the journey to build that relationship with corporate. So one is, you know, be targeted, find that shared value, and find the right corporate to actually partner with. You know, don't bend over backwards, like Lisa said, to try to shape some kind of package or special deal to just make sure that you can get a couple of grand, so to speak. It's not necessarily just about the donation. You know, you want to make sure that this is something that the corporates actually want more of because they can see the intrinsic value and the long-term benefit. If you're struggling to even find any corporates that you think would be, you know, values aligned, so to speak, for those who have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, that's actually a great place to start because, you know, it's a common language. There's 17 goals, and you basically ask a lot of corporates to actually align their focus to the SDGs. We do the same thing for the not-for-profits that align the SDGs, and, you know, basically marrying 2 and 2 together. If you both believe in quality education, which is SDG 4, then you naturally have a much better hit rate in terms of finding the right corporate for you. The other thing that I would suggest is, I guess, finding a, you know, again, corporate speak, product market fit for the corporate that you want to target. You know, something that makes the job of the CSR manager or the community engagement manager easier, like a well-packaged offering of, hey, look, here are the things that my charity does. Here's is what we want to offer your staff members as volunteers or donors, and how they would actually add value, and almost present it as a business case to them, going, look, this is what we need from you, and really have a clear ask and the potential outcome that the package would actually generate. Makes everyone's jobs a lot easier, and also makes it easier for them to actually decide on, you know, whether they should actually back you as the charity to go through, or, you know, hundreds or thousands of others who might be kind of having that, you know, conversation that they're doing day to day. So again, that clear package offering is really important. And then finally, again, we've talked about skill volunteering a bit already, but having something that is not just you know, generating a donation or meeting a need every quarter, every year of the corporate, but actually benefit what your charity actually does day to day, is really the goal of skill-based volunteering. So it could be meaningful for the volunteer, it could be impactful for the corporate, but most importantly, it's also very impactful for you as an organization. That keeps the partnership really strong because it's mutually beneficial. Otherwise, we've seen some good kind of head start to corporate volunteering and corporate partnerships, but then eventually the supply and demand, or the value, actually has a bigger and bigger gap, and you kind of see the partnership actually deteriorate over time because it's not a balanced equation, so to speak. So that's something that we mindful of as well.
We've got a few tips just on the slides there. Be confident, be focused, and be concise. I think that there are, you know, three strategies to think about when you're presenting yourself to corporates. The other thing I just want to say too, we use the term corporate, and we're probably using that quite loosely. It's really, you know, any business entities. My recommendation would probably be, you know, think outside the top, you know, 100, 200 companies in Australia, because they get a lot of charities knocking on their doors, and you may have better luck with some of the, you know, more mid-sized companies. Often you know, you can be, you know, more flexible in your working relationships with them, and, you know, they may still have, you know, significant, you know, ways in which that they can actually support you. So again, I'd be thinking around, you know, who's in your network, who's in your community, and not necessarily just thinking about the, you know, the top end of town.
Yeah, fair point, absolutely. I'm quite interested in the idea of the shared value approach. Victor, you mentioned shared value briefly and talked about the similar, having the same focus from both corporate and not-for-profit. Can you elaborate a bit more on what does that mean or look like? And there's a lot of strategic value there for the not-for-profit, I think, from a shared value perspective. Any further insight on that?
Sure. I mean, look, there's probably too many examples to name, but I'll name some of the more obvious ones. So we see a lot of time insurance companies would align themselves to climate action, or basically not charities that are working towards reducing the potential damage caused by natural disasters. So in a way, it actually gets their staff engaged at, I guess, fundamentally what insurance was originally about, which is to create a safety net and potentially reduce the damage caused by these things that are out of our control most of the time. And also from a financial point of view, I guess if they are supporting initiatives and organizations that are largely working towards minimizing the damage caused by these disasters, then ultimately their bottom line also benefits as well. So it's a very kind of full circle kind of approach. And regardless of whether you're engaging at the CSR level or the financial side of things in a corporate, that message really kind of cuts through a lot of the different agendas that you might see within a corporate and gets different decision makers to kind of back you in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been having conversations with organizations particularly involved in home mortgage broking, a smaller organization who help with basically mortgages, and they're really interested in working with not-for-profits involved in homelessness. So a clear alignment there between helping organizations that support address the homelessness issue, along with organizations that are helping individuals with mortgages and with their homes. So there's clear alignment, and there's a great way for corporates to actually learn about the challenges faced by not-for-profits in the homelessness sector and understand what are the projects they're dealing with, what are the business challenges that they have, and bring their skills to help address that.
And that's a really good point, Manish. Like we do broker quite a few corporate and charity partnerships, and it's always really fascinating just the two-way learning that goes on, because corporates have one perspective and charities have often a different perspective. And time and time again, corporates can think that they can kind of swan in and they've got all the answers, and then it's not until that really rich conversation happens with the not-for-profits that are working on the ground to actually understand what the key issues are, that it allows the corporate then to really understand what the issues are and think strategically about how they can actually get involved and help. And to me, I love hearing those conversations and seeing the benefits that can come out of that two-way learning. So I'd like to see more and more of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of perception there that not-for-profits have to find ways of extracting value from the corporates, but a lot of not-for-profits actually struggle with the idea or not aware of the idea of how much value they can actually deliver to a not-for-profit. And if there's a lot of strategic thinking around that, can add a lot of value to any large organization or medium-sized or small organization. So what are the real benefits of engaging with corporates? I mean, we talked about how you begin and how do you start it, but what's the real value? I mean, we know the obvious stuff, but having a more strategic engagement approach, what are the real benefits an organization or not-for-profit can have from the process?
There's certainly the strategic aspects, but there's also some I guess the reality is something like workplace giving, that's cold hard cash that's coming into your organizations, and every organization needs money to run, and that's one of the things that I do like about workplace giving. As I said, even as a result of COVID, we've seen very, very little drop off in donations, which is really encouraging. In fact, we've had one large company, American-based company, actually put a lot more money into their matching for employees, and we've had other companies doing double matching. So I mean, there's some real at the end of the day, it's that money that comes through the door. It's regular. We distribute funds out to charities every or twice a month now. So we used to distribute funds once a month. And when COVID hit, we actually decided that it was important that we got the money to charities even faster. So we're now doing distributions twice a month. And as I said, we're seeing something like workplace giving holding up really, really strongly. There are certainly other income channels like fundraising that, we know fell off a cliff in March. And hopefully we're now starting to see some of that coming back, and hopefully the next, 2021 is going to be far more healthy. But, the other conversations I know that we're having with some charities is that they're actually looking at their regular givers, and they're mining those databases to see who of those regular givers are actually working for corporates that have workplace giving programs, because they've realised that they might be missing out on matching money. So, I think that that's just a bit of a shift in thinking, and, rather than sort of saying, okay, we've got this pot of donors over here, we're not going to touch them. They're thinking, well, these are regular givers, they're really important to us, but maybe, we could actually be doubling their donation if they were giving via workplace giving. And also there's far less cost in actually securing a workplace giving donor than there is a regular giver. So I think, they're definitely some of the benefits just from that regular income flow.
Yeah, that's awesome, Lisa. Good insights there. Victor, do you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, again, look, just echoing what Lisa said, I think, the old age-old saying of going to where the resource is, it's definitely true. And to be honest, for most, medium-sized and small-sized charity, it's pretty hard to hit both B2B and B2C target at once. So quite hard to have enough resource to go engage businesses, and then the same person has to go and do a public campaign. It requires a lot of resource. So corporate engagement by itself kind of combines the two, because you do have potentially the backing of the business, and then you got access to the individuals that actually sits under the umbrella. So it might be a more, efficient way of actually spending your resource in terms of marketing and engagement. The other thing that I've seen a lot of is about, maybe opportunity, under-tapped opportunities. It's leveraging the brand of the corporate. So, assuming that you have found the corporate that are very aligned with your brand, and we sometimes talk about it as a persona. Imagine the persona of your brand and the persona of the corporate brand really kind of meets together. We've seen a lot of kind of once-off PR hype. It gets on the press, and then you see the engagement dissipate over time. What we'd love to see is actually see more charities leverage the brand of the corporates that they're partnering with, but over a longer stretch of time. And that might involve just, going into the corporates itself and actually leveraging volunteers and their skill set and expertise, but it can also be external facing. So we've seen some pretty fast growing not-for-profit that tap into that channel, like, Share the Dignity, Orange Sky. They've been growing at a phenomenal rate in the last 3-4 years, because they've been actually able to tap into the distribution network of the corporate partners. The corporate partners actually start placing their products and everything at their shelves. Those things you can't really get to until you actually build that corporate relationship. But once you can open that door, then, in a rough way, you can say their distribution network and their influence becomes your distribution network and your influence. And that's where really you can compound the impact.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that, Victor. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, please chuck them in the chat room or the chat box, and we're happy to take them as we go. But also we have some time there.
I did notice Rory's comment in the chat box, which I think is really interesting. Again, just looking at the crossover between employees who volunteer and also workplace giving, but starting to think about that social impact participation rate. So people are getting involved in the community in many different ways. I actually really like that idea, Rory. So maybe that's something we can talk about offline.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Rory. Keep any more comments, please. They're welcome.
Manish, on mute.
Sorry, the most used phrase of 2020. So some of the trends, what's happening in this space that you've seen around over 2020 around giving, and what's changed and what's not changed? What are the new ways of doing it? What's worked, what's not worked? So I'd love to hear some insights, some wisdom you guys have gained over the last 8-10 months.
Is that from Victor and I, or everybody?
Yeah, just kickstart. Lisa, why don't you kickstart? Go for it.
Look, some of the trends that we've been seeing, we've talked about it. Not surprisingly, there's definitely a move to online giving. We're also seeing charities diversifying their income channels, so realising that if they were fully reliant on face-to-face fundraising, then that's been impacted significantly. So that's meant that for some charities that's had a catastrophic effect on their income. And also, look, this is a strange thing to say maybe, but I'm actually really pleased that I feel like there's a realization that's come that charities need to have strong balance sheets to weather economic storms like this. So definitely some of the conversations that we're having with philanthropists and for corporates is to realize that charities should not be run on the smell of an oily rag. They actually should be able to attract funds into the organisation and make sure that they're actually sort of investing in the organisation and having a strong balance sheet, so that when things like pandemics hit and other issues, that you guys can actually get through these really difficult periods. So I think that's a really, really important conversation that's been started, and I hope that it continues and leads to some better outcomes and expectations as to how charities fund themselves, and that old chestnut around admin costs and whatnot, I think is really important that we address that. I think also the other thing that's been really encouraging is that we've seen corporates really stepping up to the plate and but acknowledging the value that not-for-profits deliver into our communities. So they're saying, look, we're here to help and to support you through these tough times. So I think that there have been some really encouraging trends that we've been seeing.
Yeah, awesome. That's good insights, Lisa. Thanks for that. Vic, you want to share your perspective?
Yeah, so similarly, but probably from a obviously more volunteering perspective, we've seen a number of not-for-profits that have tried and tested different ways to go online, so to speak. Not many have gone completely online, which is probably a good thing because it is an incredibly crowded place. But what we've seen the best examples are people have actually tried online, piloted a few things, and then now got the breathing space to go, okay, that was good. But now that lockdown has actually been eased up, how do we take some of the learnings that we got from going purely online and actually complement the things that we've been doing for many, many years? So there's a real hybrid approach and a bit of try and error and taking the learnings to bring it back to more of a post-COVID world, which is what we want to see, because pivoting too hard and too, I guess, directly potentially could have some impact that you don't want to the end clients that you're trying to serve. The second thing that we've seen is around, I guess, corporates prioritizing staff engagement. And look, this is not new. Most of the time it's been, okay, well, this is a real differentiator in recruiting the best talent and also retaining your best talent. But we've also seen that a lot of the corporates are looking at volunteering or giving in general as a way to reinforce their engagement within their team, because not only are people on the streets isolated, people who are working from home for huge amounts of time, especially during lockdown, are experiencing that as well. So we're having more conversations with actually the L&D department of corporates or the HR department, because they're going, well, maybe there's something there that we can do virtually, volunteer, and do a bit of team building and cohesion activities at the same time. So, we're having multiple conversations around that topic right now. And I think 2021, when we've kind of finished fighting the fires, hopefully, then people want to rebuild that team cohesion is really where this kind of collaboration can come. The last thing, and it's just, I guess, giving a bit of fresh air to the whole 2020 situation, is we've seen a lot more corporates being open to testing out new initiatives and new ways to give, right? Previously to COVID, I mentioned it has to be structured, really strict compliance process. There's checks and checks and checks afterwards. And look, these are all there for good reason. But I guess COVID really kind of took the procurement process apart and go, well, do we have the same level of risk if we do go virtual? Do we need to worry about police checks if they're not going in to really talk to one of the clients that we serve? So in some ways, we've seen examples of great ideas from not-for-profit that they might have had in their top drawers for a number of years, but now they're like, okay, well, let's give it a go. And corporates have been more open to giving them a try because of the situation that we're all in. So again, just a bit of words of encouragement. If you have some bright ideas that potentially could be well packaged, that a corporate can really help support and add some impacts, now's the time to actually have those conversations because I guess they're more open to the ideas than ever compared to, in a traditional sense, how you need to, go through the whole procurement process.
Yeah, thanks for that, Victor. I've also seen a lot of focus on engagement and well-being of staff been a priority more than it's ever been. Well-being has taken a big focus, and therefore anything that helps good employee well-being due to mental health incidences have gone up by I think 40% over COVID. So if there's any way not-for-profits can position themselves around supporting employees with the well-being piece, particularly from a volunteering giving perspective, has been known to support well-being as well. And so that's quite a big value add there that we can, not-for-profits can offer the corporate sector in a big way. So I'm conscious of time. We've got probably around 15 minutes or so. Is there any questions that anyone would like to put forward for the two around what you've heard so far, and maybe something that's a question or even a comment, not just necessarily a question, that you'd like to add into the discussion so that we can capture that as well? Everyone's fully engaged with the corporate sector. That is awesome. Okay, well, we kind of continue. Is there any other points you guys like to add, Lisa and Victor, which probably we haven't really touched on? We probably should elaborate for these guys. I think we've covered a lot of content. So I was hoping that we probably get some feedback from the attendees as well. Rory, any insights you'd like to add from since you got the other corporate hat on versus the not-for-profit hat on? Would you like to throw your hat in the ring for any comments around how not-for-profits can better engage the corporate sector?
Yeah, sure. And sorry, I don't have my camera on. I've got some
okay,
internet issues here. Yeah, look, happy to. I think that it's a time for exploration and asking some questions. Doing things differently. Where all our programs have now moved online. And looking like that in the foreseeable future, starting to get some, information from some of our BAOs and not-for-profits we work with who are saying, oh, look, we can start taking people back into the kitchens or into the offices to do some work. But I still think there's some trepidation from our people, but also from our health and wellbeing and safety teams as well. So, slowly is the way it's going to go. Hence the greater focus on virtual or online volunteering, and especially just to, I suppose, reinforce some of Victor's points and a couple of Lisa's earlier as well, is around that L&D, or the capability and learning. Depends on where you work, what they call it nowadays, but working with those capability teams to really understand, I suppose, like the employer life cycle, and understand where you can cross-section in with skilled volunteering. Mainly because I think a lot of the development budgets have also been cut, or there's a severe restriction on development, courses. Certainly no one's going overseas to do conferences, or not even interstate to do conferences. So that's where we see there's a good opportunity. For the not-for-profits on the line, I'd be asking your partners or any organisations that you see you may have the alignment is to really explore those virtual opportunities. That traditional think outside the square, but now's the time to do it. Because it's still a challenging situation for a large majority of the corporates out there as well, who have continually had to augment, change their programs. So there might be some restrictions on what they're doing in the giving space, or that volunteering is effectively free, in inverted commas. If you could see me, I'd have my air quotes up, but
yeah.
So have the conversation. Yeah, that's my little bit of contribution.
Sorry, thanks.
I was going to say,
thank you.
I would agree with that in terms of, volunteering is a great opportunity for corporates to kind of dip their toe in the water, and, bringing on the community platform, there is, you can actually access it, a corporate free. And I think that, if corporates just want to sort of, as I said, dip their toe in the water, and then they can, get that feedback from the staff, and then start to develop a more strategic program. And it's a great way for, then the charities to sort of be up on the platform and have some exposure to those corporates, because it's never a fast process to find strong corporate partners. It's something that you've got to be really committed to. You've got to put the time into it. So don't think it's going to be a quick win. But having said that, with volunteering, maybe in the lead up to Christmas, maybe there's some opportunity to, as Rory was saying, just think outside the square a little bit differently. Is there ways that you can present some volunteering opportunities that will support staff, pre-Christmas, to get involved in doing some good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rory, thank you for sharing your insights. I put you on the spot. Thank you for stepping up. Appreciate that. But yeah, if there's, I'd be keen to also hear from anybody else in terms of any lessons learned around corporate engagement. Has anyone else got any nuggets to share with the rest of the group in terms of what's worked or what's not worked in your experience? Okay, it looks like that's pretty much it. Awesome. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, if there's nothing else to add, I think we might just have to wrap up there. I guess I wanted to really thank you, Lisa, for your time. I know we kind of put you on the spot beforehand, and we did this thing in a bit of a rush manner, but thank you for your patience with us. Really grateful for your time, and Victor as well. Great insights. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of the attendees, we'll send you a link to join the Good2Give platform if you're interested in obviously being a part of their platform to raise money for your organization. So we'll be sending you a link to that, as well as sending you a link to a community platform where we're offering free access to the platform to help your organization get access to skilled volunteers. So watch out for those links. But if there's no other questions, I guess we can end on that note. Any final comments, guys? Or that's pretty much it?
I've got one, which is, look, I mentioned before, the supply demand has really shifted since COVID, and we've got a lot of volunteers that are waiting for opportunities to come onto the platform to help. Sure. So if anything, our focus as a team has always been about engaging the not-for-profits for the last 6 months, trying to go, hey, how can we help? How can we help? How can we help? So if you're thinking about it, but you've got, something that you need help with from a potential skilled volunteer, I always say, imagine you're at the whole of Deloitte right outside your door going, well, how can we help? We can actually help you bring those opportunities out and have a consultation with you so that you can then in better shape and more prepared to engage with corporates when, even when they're ready. So come get in touch, sign up, and then we can go from there. Lisa?
Awesome. Thanks, Victor.
Sorry, I think Dorothy has a comment or a question.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. We're from the Friends of the Helmet at Honeyeater, a tiny little not-for-profit up near Yellingbo. We're trying to save Victoria's avian emblem. We just have 6 part-time staff, and we're just beginning on our journey of corporate relationships, and you have helped us so much this morning. So we really welcome the opportunity to join your platforms and to go on this journey with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great feedback. Thanks so much. That made the call. Great stuff. Any other thoughts and last comments, guys, from any of the other attendees?
No, we just so they like Adrian saying thank you for all the insights, and Kimberly also thank you so much to everyone's insights and contributions. So
good stuff. Awesome. So we'll send you the links, guys, to join up and be part of our community, respected communities with Good2Give and Community. So hopefully we'll reconnect again. But in the meantime, thanks again, Lisa and Victor, for your time, and thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks, Kata, for facilitating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy your day.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.